Hey everyone, Suri here, and welcome back to another week of Anima Season defense matches. This week marked the first major change in my Anima defense in over a year. I'm honestly still really impressed by how well it held up over time, and I'm keeping the layout as an option to fall back on in case the experiments go badly. The introduction of an inheritable Kanto control was the perfect excuse for me to fit Gatekeeper onto my defense. His detailed report is already an excellent way to deny aggressive strategies that rely on Wings of Mercy or other teleports, and his ability to obstruct ranged units from a distance is really useful too. Adding Kanto control to the mix makes it a lot harder for the offense team to navigate the map, and the combat bonuses he offers to his team are really significant as well. Laegjarn's another important new face on the team. She's someone I've considered for my defenses for a while, and she can hit really hard if you set her up for it. She's part of a rally trap here, moving forward to rally Gatekeeper if the offense team leaves someone in the threat range. Azura completes the trap, dancing Laegjarn to give her a complete set of visible buffs and fully enable her weapon. She's also carrying Hone Cavalry to provide the basics in case their opponents just try to bait Laegjarn directly, while the Pulse Tie is an excellent way to defuse Reagan or other pre-charged specials. Felix got converted to a much more defensive role. Corrin's a major threat to him normally, but this kit actually lets him survive her and knock her out on the counterattack, as long as she isn't using Windsweep. Chrom got slotted in to complete the color triangle of ranged defenders. He's a great threat thanks to the danger of Change Fate, making it hard to keep him contained. Thracier's really just here as a bonus unit to mitigate losses for the season, and Cirrus is focused on being a nuisance to attack into. The team ended up doing a lot better than I expected, only suffering 2 clean losses over the entire week. It's really great to see results like these for an experimental layout, and I'll probably keep tinkering it with it in the weeks to come. So let's get to the first match. This match was a fun way to start off the week. They brought a pretty heavily Kanto-enabled team to this, and it's fun to see. While being melee means that they aren't completely shut down by Kanto control, it does still limit their movement range after they activate it, and that can make it a little harder for them to actually hit and run the way they might like to. This does seem like a pretty solid hit and run oriented team with both Reagan and Erica, and Alenja too, who can do a lot of work in case the melee cavalry can't actually get in range, whether in the front lines being protected by traps or otherwise. They take a couple of turns here just to set up and get in position, and let Erica get access to Cirrus, since Reagan's not going to have such a good time with that fight. And Erica can move in and punch through her, thanks to the very high amount of damage her Luna offers. But Kanto stops her from retreating too far out of the way, and that means they didn't quite get as far back as they might have liked. From here, once Gatekeeper moves forward onto the defense tile, he's in a threatened area and Laegjarn moves in to rally him, gets danced, and that's the end of Erica. Nobody else gets in range here, and they do keep going. Reagan can take Laegjarn down here. Hull does a lot for her. But from there, they can't actually knock anything else out. Gatekeeper's actually very bulky on a defense tile, and then they concede the match. This match was a fun one to see. They brought along a pretty neat team, including a Nirse Vaidun to protect their ranged specialist and a Kaden to supercharge them both with combat buffs. And this young Alina in her bonus week is just really impressive. Already plus 10 in Descended, and very, very solid overall. Using Close Reversal on her is an interesting choice when they do have Idun to protect her from the melee, but it really just means that she can function as an Omni-tank as well, in case there's something that's a little too spooky for Idun to handle. And of course, backing it all up with Elamine, gives her even more damage reduction to work with. Once they've got the first turn over with, they just swap her forwards and plonk in range. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any way to stop Laegjarn from just going after Caden instead of her, which Laegjarn's more than happy to do.
I'm too gorgeous to die.
And while Gatekeeper can't actually really do anything to Ileana here, she also can't knock him out, which means that he survives to sit on this defense tile and help out his allies later on. The close reversal does mean that Ileana has absolutely no problems dealing with Zeros.
I'm sorry.
The rest of our team can't actually get in range here, although importantly, Chrom does reposition Thracer out of the threat range and fully charge his Deadeye. Ileana can just barely finish Laegjarn off here, and then they move Idun in to protect her from... well, we don't really have any melee left. She's mostly getting out of range. Unfortunately for Ileana, the damage reduction she has doesn't stop Chrom from just knocking her out with a Deadeye, and the dance means that Thor's an easy second target for him. And then Gatekeeper gets to move in at the end and actually secure a knockout for himself with this bonfire.
I'll go to God.
And at that point, it's enough for them, and they surrender and move on. This match was a fun one to see, and they actually brought along exactly the sort of team I'm trying to shut down by including Gatekeeper on my defense. Almost their entire team is using Wings of Mercy, except for Thor, who's using 2 Furies to make it very easy to enable those Wings of Mercy for her entire team. Once the chain gets going, the 4 different Gale Forces, plus the spare that Edelgard has access to, is enough for them to sweep basically any defense they run into. And it's a very solid Gale Force setup. They take a turn here just to let Edelgard transform before they move in, and once Valoria smites her forward, she can go to work on Seros. She doesn't have any real issues tanking Seros here. The defense tile and her color advantage do a lot of work. But Seros actually does get to survive this thanks to Dragon Wall, which forces Thor to use her Gale Force just to finish Seros off. Unfortunately, from here, Gatekeeper kind of shuts down their entire strategy, and they just surrender the match there. This match was a bit of an odd one. It's rare to see a 5-unit team on an offense these days now that we have Reagan available in Astra and Ashe available in Light, and it's even rarer to see an Ashe in an out-of-season team. It's a little odd overall, but I suppose if they foddered off their Reagan before they realized what she was used for, it might explain it. And the combination of the 2 Edelgards and a Farsave Fjorm is enough to clear a lot of defenses out without too much trouble. They take a couple of turns here just moving into position and clearing out this front line of structures and getting ready to start this fight. And once they are, they just move Ashe and Edelgard forward and intercept our team. Laegjarn actually moves in first here and doesn't actually get to punch through Ashe's follow-up denial, since Ashe's lull actually stops her from having the 10 buffs she needs for it. Once she gets danced though, she can knock out Boyd with no issues at all. Although Seros can't really say the same about Edelgard. Chrom can't get in range thanks to the tactic room, and that's the end of that turn. They decide to keep going for the win here, and well, in the enemy phase, Laegjarn's not having a good time against Brave Edelgard, while Fallen Edelgard goes after Gatekeeper, and then goes after Gatekeeper again. And he actually survives both of these hits, which is fun to see. Unfortunately from there, our even pulse tie actually disables Fjorm's Ice Mirror, which makes it very easy for Chrom to just one-shot her. And then he gets danced and can go after the Brave Edelgard.
I've done all I can.
From there though, the Fallen Edelgard sort of reasserts things, and as solid as Gatekeeper is, he's not going to be able to tank that when he only has 20 health left. And nobody else gets in range. And at that point it's pretty easy for Fallen Edelgard to start cleaning up the map. She can finish Chrom off and then just move back into position on the defense tile and tank through the rest of the team.
Face your mortality.
This isn't really a loss I'm terribly worried about. It's pretty rare to see someone willing to take 3 knockouts on an offense, especially if they have ladders left.
Perish.
And then down goes Felix. This was a fun match to see. It's a pretty heavily hit-and-run oriented team, headlined by 2 different blue cavalry mages. They do fit pretty different roles on the team. Happy's just great for one-shotting any specific target, and the Ruptured Sky on top really helps lean into her Beast and Dragon Slaying niche. Selena, meanwhile, has Null Follow-Up in her weapon, and Windsweep to help her initiate safely into someone like Felix, who might survive and knock Happy out. I'm not sure how consistent the AoE special is for her. As long as she's not attacking into a guard effect though, she can get it charged over a couple of combats and shred a team afterwards. Unfortunately, going in to attack Felix on the first turn here doesn't really accomplish anything for them, since the healing tower just patches him up afterwards. So they back up as far as they can and stay out of range for this turn. Laegjarn doesn't move before Missouri gets to dance Felix, unfortunately, so we don't actually catch up to them here. But Felix does end up covering most of the team with Farsave again. Except for Saros, who
Don't blame me.
gets pretty easily demolished by Happy. From there though, the Kendo control really starts to mess with them, and they try to have Altina move in to take down Chrom, but she can't quite manage it, and well, at that point it's very easy for Chrom to move in and pick up a knockout.
Let's talk about our feelings. You are my one true.
Gatekeeper moves in next, and while he can't really threaten Altina, he's also chunky enough that Altina can't actually knock him out on the counterattack. And once Laegjarn gets danced, she can move in and finish the job.
Disgrace leaves a brand.
I'm a bit conflicted about seeing Altina do no damage at all to Laegjarn there. But it's a good thing for the defense. They decide to keep going here, and Happy can
Not giving up.
finish Laegjarn off without any problems in the player phase. But this Kanto control is still being a nuisance for them, and Reagan can't actually move in to take down Gatekeeper until after Happy knocks out Crom. And at that point, he doesn't have enough allies in his range to keep the follow-up denial in line, so Reagan can finally move in to take him down. She couldn't do it before thanks to the even pulse tie, which hopefully disables her special one more time. And Thracer gets danced forwards to take down Selena. Felix can't get in range to follow up, but at that point it's enough for them to surrender and move on. This match was a really neat one to see. It's been a long time since I've seen an Hitsuki on an offense team, and this one is really impressive. Absolute max investment with the Winter Rapier for the attack-defense unity, and they're backing that up with the Micaiah and an Isolation from Fjord. Isolation's actually an effect that really throws a wrench in this defense as it is right now, since disabling the rally trap from Laegjarn means that she can't just move in and snipe someone you don't want her to get to on that first turn. And the rest of the team is mostly here to support. Micaiah is actually a great way to pick off something that Itsuki might not want to handle on the first combats. And, as usual, she's very good at bullying Felix. It is nice to actually see him survive that first hit, though. And if she had her desperation active at the start of this, he would have actually survived her. From there they just back up, and manage to keep themselves all the way out of range, again, thanks to that isolation. While Thracer does get danced, she's not able to get as far forward as Laegjarn would, so it's easy enough for them to just start moving in. From here, Micaiah takes a chunk out of Seros, which, while it doesn't knock Seros out on her own, does soften her up enough for Itsuki to move in and finish her off. And I think they kind of expected Itsuki to be alright from there. Gatekeeper moves into Harsh Command, and Laegjarn actually doesn't have her weapon online at all here. But even with that, she still manages to punch right through Itsuki and take him down. And of course, once she gets danced, it's lights out for Plumeria. And then it's just a bit of a train wreck. Bracier goes in and takes down Reagan. Then Crom repositions Laegjarn back and moves in to knock out Micaiah. And with almost their entire team down, it's enough for them to move on. This match was a really neat one to see. I was wondering when the defense was going to get visited by a maxed out hardy fighter Hector. It's a very popular build for him these days. It's very strong with it. And they're backing him up with a near save Idun to round that out, and a lethality Yuri just to really help punch through anything that might actually threaten either Idun or Hector. Complete with Hardy Bearing to make sure the lethality lands, and supported with Raphael to fully charge it on turn 1. It's a very solid team, and Thor providing breath support for both Hector and Idun means that they can charge their specials up in one hit each, Idun for the counterattack and Hector with his counterattack. So, once they've cleared out the structures, they just move in and plonk away. Idun doesn't really have any issues with Seros. It's not a fight that Seros is built to have any hope of winning,
my heart.
And Idun has enough res to just check that Dragon Wall. Unfortunately, the threat range from Yuri really backfires on them here, and causes a rally and reposition to get Laegjarn to move in and attack into Hector. And while this first hit doesn't really do much, the second hit is enough to wipe him out. He doesn't get to fully charge his Aegis again thanks to Guard, and they go ahead and take this revenge knockout with Naga. From there, though, Yuri ends up walking directly onto a Hex Trap, and he doesn't actually have a lethality to work with anymore, thanks to, or even Pulse Tie. And plonking Thor on the defense tile does intercept a lot of the team, but it's not enough to distract Chrom from moving forward to knock out Yuri, or Thracier from taking a very easy knockout against a blue dragon. And then Azura just completes the disaster by moving in to knock out this Raphael.
As petals fall.
Felix, sadly, can't quite do any damage to Thor, but losing most of their team like that is enough for them to surrender the match and move on. This one was another really neat match to see. I have not seen many maxed out Juliuses in the wild, and this one's really impressive, even sporting a colorless feud skill. It's a very neat build for him, using a feud over something like Pulse Smoke or Panic Smoke. It feels a little bit specific, and they might have another team with a different C skill for him. But here it does a lot of work for helping him to mitigate how threatening Laegjarn can be. And of course backing him up with a near-safe tank and Thor and Elamine. It's a very solid spectrum of support. Here Laegjarn does just rally forwards, but she can actually move in to attack Gustav, and just barely misses this knockout. After that, it's not so good for Gatekeeper. Attacking into a null follow-up red like this is just not going to end well for him.
Blood will rain.
And nobody else quite makes it into range, so it's not so bad for them here. Julius is just barely able to knock out Laegjarn here. It's actually very close, and the feud skill ends up making the difference. And that's probably why Laegjarn didn't actually go after him instead of going after Gustav. With a little bit more investment and a Deadeye, she actually would have been able to take this Julius out, which is fun to see. Without Laegjarn, though, the team really doesn't have any chance of handling this Julius, who's able to sweep through most of the rest of the team without any issues. From here, they start taking their time with this approach and send Julius over to dance with Ceros. But she actually does have more res than he does, and since apparently they don't want to just knock her out with Reagan, Ceros just ends up attacking him, and also getting the damage mitigated. From here, I think they're deliberately not knocking Ceros out. Although it is a little bit risky, since this iceberg does hit pretty hard. It's just not quite enough to knock Julius out, though. And then Reagan can move over and knock out Thracier. And the reason I think they're trying to keep Ceres alive is to let them reach this Aether pot later on. It's really impressive to see this Julius just tanking Ceres turn after turn, though. Though, if she wasn't using a completely defensive kit, this Julius would not have survived as long as he did here. From here, they decide to finally bring this to a close. And let Julius tank Felix and barely avoid just knocking him out.
Blood will rain.
And then from there it's easy for them to pick up this Aether pot and close out the match.
I bring you death.
This match was a little bit unfortunate to see. It's been a long while since I've seen a duo Altina show up and do well on my defenses. Felix has been a really good deterrent for her for a long time, but he's not really in a position to threaten her as much as he usually does anymore in this setup. And I might need to think about fixing that if Altina starts turning up regularly. They've got a pretty good team for supporting her. Yuri's great for just skating around the map and picking off key structures, like the duo's hindrance. Even with Kento control involved, it's not too hard for him to move in and pick it off, and then get danced to safety while getting Plumeria repositioned out. And with our healing tower getting sniped by their catapult, there's really not much of an answer the team has for getting bolt towered like this. So they just set Altina up with their duo skill, move the support in behind her, and say go. And, well, Chrom is not surviving that. And neither is Laegjarn.
I shall bestow a gift.
Or Zero. And the only reason they don't get Thracier here is because of their tactic room. And it's honestly really easy for them to just clean things up from here. The effective damage from Naga actually lets Plumeria take Ceres down, which is a bit of a noof moment. Yep, and then they can just let Altina continue to sweep. She doesn't actually need Vantage to do anything here. There aren't any debuffs coming her way, so it's not like Thracier can even attack with Desperation, if she could even really do damage in the first place. Then Yuri can just move in and finish off Felix.
Better accept it. Kneel.
And then Altina moves in, and they just let her close out the match against the tactic roomed Gatekeeper.
Go.
This match was a fun way to close out the week with a bonus week Young Ike as their headliner. I actually had a lot of fun using him myself in his bonus week. His weapon's just a lot of fun to use. And backing him up with a Corrin and Azura combo is a great way to pick off anything that might actually threaten him before he has to tank. Elemine, meanwhile, is just a great way to turn off Katria, who's the most consistent source of brave hits that he might have to worry about otherwise. And also gives him damage reduction past the first hit, in case he needs it. So they're feeling pretty confident here and just dancing forward with this buff spectrum, pick off the panic manner, move Elemine in behind, and say go. They don't actually turn on his null follow-up though. But it doesn't end up mattering when Laegjarn just moves in, prevents his Aether thanks to guard, and then finishes him off with a natural double into Luna. We don't actually get in range of them with anyone else since the dance lands on Felix, but that's enough for them to surrender the match and move on. This was a really great week overall for replays. I wasn't actually expecting this defense to do as well as it did, which is part of why I added the bonus week thrice here into the team. And it's really great to see Laegjarn and Gatekeeper doing so much work. Laegjarn especially, I've been looking for a good place to use her regularly for a while now, and this might just be it. And it's really great to see Gatekeeper locking down the field with Kanto control and his warp denial. Next week's defenses are going to be a fun time too. I'm going to debut a Medius setup, and there will be a couple of other new and old faces on that team as well. I do have a Discord server if you'd like to hang out and chat. There's a link in the description, and I've also got a Patreon link in there if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.